And we welcome you to Heat Check, our weekly Miami Herald podcast. I'm Barry Jackson, filling in for John Devine alongside Anthony Chang, as always. So we are at the 15 game mark, Anthony, and 9-6. Not bad considering no Tyler Hero. I think what's happened is that the Eastern Conference might be a little tougher than maybe we envisioned. You have Toronto at 5 over 500. You have Chicago getting off to a good start. So it looks like it's going to be 11 teams battling for 10 spots. And obviously, then it'll be reduced by two in the play-in round to get to eight. So it's an encouraging start, but at the same time, one of these teams is going to be left out of the postseason. How would you assess, or at least from the play-in round, and three will be left out of the postseason? How would you assess this team through 15 games?
It's been encouraging, I mean, I don't think either of us thought they would be 9-6 after these first 15 games, knowing that Tyler would be out probably these first 15 games. And then the fact that Bam missed some time and Norm missed some time, and they've had a challenging schedule, the West Coast trip. So 9-6 is all things considered. I mean, better than I would say most realistic people could have imagined. So, obviously the offense has been a surprise, right? After this kind of their slow pace the last whatever, I mean, forever really, their slow pace offense, low scoring offense last year, bottom 10 offensive rating the last 3 years. They have a fun offense this year, playing at the fastest pace in the league, one of the highest scoring teams in the league. So yeah, I think all of it has been kind of a pleasant surprise so far, especially with Tyler Hero, who I know Norm has been great, but you could argue Tyler's the best scorer, right? So what is he, when he comes back, what is his team going to look like? Bam obviously missed 6 games. So yeah, I think all good things for the most part.
And the pace obviously has been a story of the season so far. How they've led the league in pace, led the league in scoring. To
Have we
score
written that yet,
110.
Barry? I don't know if we've written that yet. I mean, I
This just into our newsroom.
don't.
It's remarkable that on a night they score 110 against Golden State. Of course, it's a Warriors team that was
Yeah.
without its three best players. That they're well under their scoring average, and they still won tonight, albeit in spite of a poor effort during the first three quarters. I guess a couple concerns have surfaced over the last week. One is how will they respond to facing zone? We saw some
Yes.
against the Knicks. We saw some tonight. So that would be one concern. Then obviously the other concern that surfaced has been offensive rebounding and or offensive rebounding of the opposing team. So the Heat's play on the defensive glass. As you noted on MiamiHerald.com and your takeaways on the Warriors Heat game tonight, the Heat has been out rebounded in the offensive rebound battle in 9 consecutive games. Bam's return did not solve that tonight, although, as
No.
you've noted, they're obviously a lot better on the defensive glass with Bam than without him. So, which of those concerns would bother you more? Do you think this fast-paced offense is equipped to compete against zones? And do you think the offensive rebounding issue for the opposing team will be a problem all year?
Yeah, I mean those are two interesting things to kind of monitor. But to go to the rebounding, I would say the rebounding only because look, I'm not as concerned about the rebounding I think as most because I think Bam will help stabilize things. I know tonight wasn't reflection of that, but he just came back from injury. He didn't play his normal minutes. Um, they have finished as a top five defensive rebounding team, def according to defensive rebounding percentage, the last 3 years. So they've been one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the league, with basically a very similar roster. I mean, they've played small these last 3 years for the most part, other than that stretch with Kalel and Bam. They still have Kalel on the roster, so they can turn to that if they want to. So I think the defensive rebounding will stabilize a little bit. I don't think they're going to be maybe top five, like they've been the last few years, but I think they could be good enough. I think the fast pace they're playing at kind of impacts their rebounding because some guys are leaking out, right? It's not the same as they were playing the last few years. So I think that's why they won't be an elite defensive rebounding team, but I think they'll be fine. The zone, it's I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. I don't know if if you're forcing teams to play a defense they don't usually play, that's usually a good thing, right? The
Right.
Knicks, the Knicks hadn't played zone in a long, long time. They pulled out against the Heat, and yeah, there was some success, but the Heat also the numbers, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they've been pretty good against the zone. Yes, it slows them down. It takes them a little bit to kind of recalibrate and try to solve it, but I think they'll be okay against the zone. And again, I think if you're getting teams to go do something uncharacteristic, it's just to try to slow you down and stop you. A, that's a compliment to the way the Heat are playing, and B, usually they're not going to be that good at it. So I'm not too concerned about the zone. I know that's, I think more teams are going to continue to play it. I think the Heat will get better as they see more of it as the season goes on. But the rebounding is something to monitor because they have been elite in that area. I don't think they're going to be elite this year in it, but I do think they'll be good enough once Bam, gets is healthy and gets some games under his belt.
I'm probably a little more concerned about the rebounding than you are, just because we're continuing to see them play small. Everyone thought going into this year it would be a decision between Ware and Nico, a 7-footer and a 6'11 player, and instead they've gone back to a small lineup where you have Wiggins at 6'7 as your power forward, similar to the days when Jimmy played a pseudo power forward role. So you're going small, which, and you made an excellent point off air about this. Going small, obviously is very helpful as far as the pace they're playing, being able to get
Sure.
the ball up court quickly, get a lot of shots off. But we've seen it be detrimental to them simply with lack of size against the Mitchell Robinsons of the world and others. So to me, that's going to be a concern all year. And I don't know where Spo ultimately goes with this. I guess he'll see how the smaller lineups do before determining whether to play Ware and Bam together a lot, as he did last year, as everyone knows, from mid-January on when they played a ton together. I think one issue with this is that Nico has basically made himself unplayable over the last couple of weeks. He's playing so poorly, turnover prone, shooting 40% from the field, 29% on threes. So if you don't have a natural backup big, then you almost have to split the minutes between Bam and,
Right.
and Ware. We saw that on Wednesday night against Golden State with Ware playing 19, Bam obviously playing the rest. There is a way to stagger them where you could play them a little bit together, but if you don't trust Nico as your only backup big, then how could you play Bam and Ware heavy minutes together, even if Spo decided to do that, right?
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's a conundrum, and I think the Heat's hope is that Nico will get back on track. We saw this last year, right? We started the year very bad, fell out of the rotation, then got back in the rotation, started playing well. That's just kind of what Nico's been throughout his career. Not to make this into a Nico discussion, but he's just so up and down, right? Next game, would it be surprising he scored 25 points? No, it wouldn't be surprising because that's, kind of what he does. He scored 30 a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So, I think the hope is, yeah, right now Nico seems unplayable, but this team's gonna continue to try to play him, right? I mean, they just invested an extension in him. They can't just give up on him now. So we'll see how that evolves. But yeah, I mean, the way this roster is built, even if Nico's in the rotation, he's not really at the center, obviously. You can play him in small lineups against smaller teams, but you're gonna need one of Kalel, one of Bam out there most time, in most minutes. So you're gonna have to stagger their minutes, whether they're starting or not. And it seems like, Spo mentioned after the game against the Warriors on Wednesday, the night we're recording this, that he thought about putting Kalel out there with Bam even tonight while Kalel didn't start with Bam. But the Warriors, because they were missing so many players, were so small that it was just more of a matchup thing. That's why I didn't bring Kalel in to play with Bam. So I think we'll still see some of it. Will we see 15 minutes a game of Kalel and Bam? Probably not. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see 5 to 8 minutes, right? Every game of those two together to see how it goes. And based on certain matchups, maybe we'll see more of it. So I think, yeah, they're gonna have to stagger their minutes, but I do think they'll play together for stretches during games.
I agree with you. They're obviously not going to give up on Nico after giving him a 4-year
Yeah.
extension, but I don't see him being in the rotation immediately when Tyler comes back. If Tyler
Gonna be
returns
interesting.
Monday or
Yeah,
Wednesday next week, or
right.
perhaps after Thanksgiving, obviously he's going to be back likely next week. The question then is whose minutes diminish beyond
Well,
Nico? Because tonight without Nico, obviously you saw the regular
yeah.
allotment of minutes for Jaime, who's going to continue to play a ton because he's been great for the most part. Fontecchio, Drew Smith. Whose minutes get reduced? Larson, perhaps, do you think?
I don't know. Larson's starting now, right? He's played, I think he's been very good that he's kind of played his way into being a fixture in the rotation. Just his defense, his physicality, his versatility, his shooting has been pretty good. He kind of fits this offense with his catch and go and driving to the basket and drawing fouls. I kind of think Pella's gonna be in the rotation. The guy I would point to, and he's played well, and we know the Heat love him, and he does all the little things, is Drew Smith, right?
Right.
Um, when he's a guard, Tyler Hero's gonna add another guard to the rotation. Could Drew Smith's minutes get cut? And again,
Yeah,
it's
he'd be
not,
the one likely.
he'd be the
And
one.
should we assume that Hero steps in for Larson as opposed to Mitchell in the
I think
starting
he's going to
lineup?
step in for Mitchell. I really
You
do. And that's,
do,
and yes, I think he's going to step in for Mitchell, which again makes it more likely that Drew probably's minutes are cut or maybe doesn't even play at all. Because how are you going to, Davion and Drew, kind of similar type, defensive minded guards. Davion's gonna be playing big minutes off the bench. There might not be room for both of them off the bench, right? So again, we don't know. This is my guess. I would
right?
expect Tyler to step in for Mitchell, and you have Tyler, Norm, Wiggins, Pella, and Bam as a starting lineup for now, right? We all know it's supposed to change starting lineup. I'm sure Kalo and Bam will start some games together at some point this season. But yeah, that's kind of what I expect once Tyler returns next week.
But outside of Larson's size, what would that do for you if having Tyler replace Mitchell in the starting lineup as opposed to Larson? Why do you think there's upside with that move as opposed to putting Larson on the bench, having Tyler, Powell, Mitchell as a three-guard lineup, and then Wiggins and Bam up front?
Well, I think Davion's better with the ball in his hands, right? He's the one that's been kind of creating for this offense, dribble penetration, spraying out to shooters or finishing himself. He's been trusted with the ball in his hands. With Tyler in there, Tyler's gonna want the ball in his hands. Norm is gonna need the ball in his hands, right? So you gotta need a guy that can play without the ball and do everything else. I think Pella fits better. You're gonna have Norm, Tyler, and Davion in there. I mean, there's just not, again, Davion will be the one kind of playing off the ball as a shooter, but that's not his game, right? So I think Davion makes more sense staggering minutes with either Norm or Tyler, having a guy in there who can initiate the offense. Um, it just makes sense to me. Would I be shocked if it's Davion, Norm, and Tyler? No, I wouldn't be shocked, but I think it just makes more sense kind of fit wise for the lineup for Pella to be in there.
Yeah, I could see your point looking at it through that lens. I would
And
say
si and
that
size is
it's,
important. I mean, it's not like,
yeah,
Pella's not 7 feet tall, but it does add some positional size, some versatility where Pella can guard 1 through 3 pretty comfortably. Um, we even saw Pella guard Karl Anthony Towns a little bit against the Knicks. Like
right.
he's a strong guy, solid build. So he adds that dimension to that starting lineup as well when you have a backcourt of Norm and Tyler who really don't have that versatility.
Yeah, it was interesting tonight to see Butler, n not a surprise, not dressed in the second half of
No.
a back-to-back as the Warriors end a six-game road trip. But
You know
you
what?
now
You know what
look,
is surprising, by the way? Sorry. You know
what?
what is surprising?
Tell me.
He has played in 3 of the first 5 back-to-backs. How about that? We've
Interesting,
had
but
five
sat out
back-to-backs
tonight.
already. We saw tonight, but he's played in three
Huh,
back-to-backs, which is probably 3 more than he would for the Heat.
right.
So
And he
that's
cited his back in not playing back-to-back. But
exactly, yeah, right.
now,
Yeah.
with the Powell trade, which was an absolute steal, we can look at that trade, and I'm sure Heat fans have looked at it in this context. But to be able to flip Jimmy ultimately for Wiggins and Powell and Mitchell and their first round pick, who obviously is playing
Mhm.
in Sioux Falls at the moment, just to get him some minutes in exchange for Love, Anderson, and Jimmy. You look at the value in retrospect, and I know
Not
you can
bad.
say, well, Powell was a trade made months later.
Right.
But if you look at it in totality with what the Heat did with Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love to get Powell, who has just been terrific, 17 points in the fourth quarter tonight against Golden State. We're taping on Wednesday night. If you look at it in those terms, did the Heat clearly win the Jimmy Butler trade if you include Powell in it? I say yes. And I would not have felt that way last February, but now I say they without question won it. And I would add this before getting your feeling on this, Anthony. I would add the fact that they're not saddled with a $56 million
Right.
dollars
For
salary
sure.
on their cap next year. That's a huge help. So beyond
Yeah.
the players that they got, not having to worry about that salary for a guy who's obviously been great, but he's going to be 37. He's probably going to miss at least 20 games next year.
Right.
I think it's a clear win. And I know it's early and we probably shouldn't judge it until next year when we see what Butler does in that 1 year extension. But I think now it's a clear win for Miami. Your view.
I think you're right, unless, and I don't think this is gonna happen, but unless the Warriors win a championship. Right? I mean,
Interesting.
if they win a championship with Jimmy, they won the trade, no matter what happens, right? I mean,
Right.
but I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, that's always possible, right? I mean, they're one of the probably top 6, 7 teams in the West when they're healthy. So yeah, I think the Heat won the trade. I think you could say that now, especially with Norm. And who knows what Cat's gonna be? I mean, he could end up being a NBA starter for a decade, and that the trade looks even better for the Heat. And I don't think it's gonna happen now, but there was also a thought before the season of, can you continue flipping these players for more picks, right? Andrew Wiggins, Norm Powell. Can this Jimmy Butler trade turn into three first round picks instead of one? So I guess there's always that possibility as well. But yeah, as of right now, the way things stand, I would say yeah, I think that he did win the trade. But I wouldn't close the door yet on the Warriors because again, if they win a championship, then all of a sudden, I don't think anybody would argue, that the Warriors didn't win that trade.
Right. Chances of that seem so slim. And
Seems
I don't
slim.
say that as a
Seems slim.
criticism of
Yeah.
Golden State, but simply because how loaded the top of the West
Yeah.
is
And
with Oklahoma
OKC just
City and
seems,
Denver
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Houston, obviously
Yeah.
much improved with
Yeah.
Durant. So it's just, I wouldn't even be shocked if they don't get out of the first round. And again, that's no criticism of Jimmy and Steph, obviously.
Right.
It's just a reflection of how loaded the top of the West is this year. We should touch on Bam before we leave. I know it's easy at times, and I've been guilty of it at times myself in our conversations, to overlook everything Bam does. And you start wondering, well, what if you flip him for 4 or 5 first round picks? And I, I've certainly talked about that with you over the summer, saying
Yeah.
maybe they should rebuild. To me, getting Powell changed everything because that made you competitive this year. That made you a team that could be a good team this year, and it's turned out that way. So I'm glad that they didn't torch everything and blow it up. Not that the Heat would have anyway, but just to see Bam's value even clearer when he's not playing for them, as we saw over these
Yeah.
past 6 games. Talk about, if you could, just the intangible things that maybe the untrained eye, as Spo would say, might not see with Bam that we saw tonight and we generally see with him.
Yeah, basketball aficionado would not appreciate
Right.
to use spoism. Yeah, I mean, Bam does so much, right? And yes, he doesn't score 30 a game. He never will score 30 a game. That's just not what he does. But, he takes a defense that probably would be in the bottom half of the league to top 10 pretty much every season. You look at the defensive numbers when he's on the court compared when he's off the floor, confirm that. The rebounding, right? We kind of talked about it earlier, but the last few years when Bam's been on the floor, they've been one of the better rebounding teams in the league. When he's off the floor, they've been one of the worst. His screen setting, his passing, um, it just yeah, and just the fact that he's kind of like a stable leader. Like he's low maintenance, right? That's
Right.
big. It's kind of you can't forget about that because we've seen stars come in here and they're not low maintenance, and sometimes that can be an issue. So yeah, Bam is really important as a leader, as a player. Just everything he does on both sides. I would say he's a top 15, probably two-way. When you consider defense, top 15 two-way player in the league. I don't think that's crazy to say. Um, so yeah, it's good that he's back. Obviously, Heat are better when he's playing.
And played well
Um,
tonight,
and he played
obviously,
well
with
tonight. It was a
the
slow
20 and
start.
7.
It was a slow start, but he had, I think, 9 in the fourth quarter, so he got a rhythm as the game went on. And now that he's shooting more threes, right? I mean, he took 4 threes tonight, 3 of 4, mid to upper 30% 3-point shooter this season, shooting more and making more than ever. So that's even another dimension to his game that makes him a little more of a well-rounded offensive player.
Yeah, I did not know if he'd get to this consistent level of mid to high 30s. We saw the three-point shooting obviously take off the second
Yeah,
half of last season. And to see it continue now, that makes him, I would say, more valuable than he's ever been. He's always been extremely valuable, but
right.
to add that
For
three-point
sure.
dimension on top of the defense, on top of the switchability, on top of the screen setting, on top of the rebounding. So I've changed my view on this. I've gone from during the summer thinking they should blow it up, try to trade Bam for 5 first round picks, to thinking, do not do that. And so much of it is because of what Powell has given them, a top flight, I don't want to say elite score, but someone who's on that level just
Has he
below
been
elite.
better than you thought, Barry? I know he was good last year, but I mean,
Yes,
has he even been
yes.
better than
Yeah,
you thought he
I,
would be?
I, I mean, I think we both knew that he'd instantly be their
Yeah,
second best offensive player, or perhaps 1A with Tyler. But just his efficiency has been
sure.
better than what I thought. And obviously, he's not going to create a ton for others, but just to have a professional scorer, which is what this team so desperately needed. So I would say that, combined with what Spo has done in terms of changing the pace and the way they play and making it successful, plus Hawkes's
Yes.
improvement,
Yeah.
all of those have made me feel like, well, you know what? They did the right thing by seeing this through and not blowing it up. And of course, it could end with a play-in loss. It could end with a first round series loss. But knowing that they now have a team that probably can go toe to toe with most in the East, I would think it was the right decision not to blow it up, even though I obviously advocated that early this summer. Do you like where they are long term at this point, or do you still have concerns maybe about the lack of first round picks and maybe not being as good as New
I
York,
mean,
Cleveland, Boston
yeah.
once Tatum's back?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, would I call this team a championship contender this season? I don't think I would go that far yet.
Right,
But it is encouraging. The young core has looks better than it did, even with Nico kind of regressing a little bit here early on. I mean, the way that Jaime's playing, like you said, one of the better bench players in the league. Kalel, right? This is probably his most consistent stretch in the NBA. I think six straight double-digit rebound games. I think he had four double doubles like in the last 6 or 7 games. He's just been consistently impactful. That's good to see. He's 21 years old. So, yeah, I think they're in a good place, and a lot of their first round picks will open up soon in the next couple of years. So they're gonna have more flexibility as time goes on. Um, I like where they are. I do. I like where they are. Um, I think they're at a good point right now, and the Jimmy trade was a big reason for that. It kind of built that, where they are right now with Norm and the extra first round pick they got when they got Kaz, which we don't know what he's going to be, like we mentioned earlier. So yeah, they have a good. I mean, I think they have six of their own first round picks on the roster,
right.
which is including Bam and Tyler, obviously, which is something that you don't see. I don't think they've ever had, right, since Pat Riley took over.
No question. And Ware's play, as you just know, it's been really encouraging the last
Yeah.
week. Not only what he's done from a rebounding standpoint, improving with his motor, but also his maturity off the court. The way he handled being removed from the starting lineup
Yep.
today. Obviously, the concern initially was, do we have another Whiteside on our hands? I think that concern has been lessened somewhat just because of the way Colella has comported himself. Now, obviously, you want to see max effort all of the time and never have to worry about the motor. But I think the way he's handled himself in terms of not pouting, not complaining about minutes, changing wildly from one night to the next, that shows a level of maturity that I think gives you encouragement that we don't have another Whiteside on our hands. And he even joked about Haslam, his message to
Yeah.
him, right, last week about needing to rebound more.
Yeah.
So I've been impressed with Ware's growth and the question of whether they should have offered him for Durant is one that I'm sure people will continue to think about as the season progresses. Durant's obviously been terrific, but at this point, I think they made the right move by not offering him just because you see so many intoxicating skills with a 21-year-old. The 16 rebounds we saw tonight, it's not something which you should give up
In
easily.
19 minutes. In
Right? In
19
19
minutes.
minutes. Incredible. And he was 17th in the league in rebounds per 36 minutes last year. He's probably going to be
Yeah.
top 20 this year if he continues doing what he did tonight.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's 21 years old, right? I mean, a 21
Right.
year old who is averaging a double double pretty much if he played extended minutes, that's rare, right? And he can also make threes. We've seen that he's been a pretty good 3-point shooter this season. He's improving defensively. Yeah, he probably is, and we've said it before the season, the most talented young player they have on the roster, right? Of all the recent draft picks, he definitely has the most upside. So, yeah, I don't think he's. We can talk about the Kevin Durant thing and if they should have offered him, but right now I think they made the right choice. There's no doubt. One thing I wanted to talk to you about Barry real quick. I just want to mention too, as a fun fact before we close, because Zoom is about to kick us out here next few minutes. Um, what do you think they're ranked in offensive rating?
Well, we know points per game going into the week,
Yeah,
they were at the top of the league. We know pace, they were top of the league. Offensive rating,
yeah, because that's adjusted to pace, right? So
right. 11th?
16th,
Hmm.
which it shows you like their offense has been better, right? I mean, they've been a bottom 10 offense, so 16th, which is pretty much average. That is a big improvement, right, from the last few years. But it's still been their defense that has won them games. They still have a top 10 defense and defensive rating. Their offense, while fun and exciting and improved, is still not one of the better offenses in the league. It's about average. We'll see what ends up at the end of the season. It could up as bottom 10 again. After all this, for all we know, they're right. I mean, they're not far off from bottom 10, but that just shows you that um, this is a great system, right? It's working because they are improved, but they just don't have, no matter what the system is, they don't have the personnel to be an elite offense. It's still going to have to be the defense to win them games, which is why, again, Bam is so important because Bam is kind of what the defense is built around. He's the one that makes the defense elite. So just something to keep in mind because I think people lose sight of it, right? That we think this offense is elite and they're the highest scoring team in the league and this and that, but they're still, when you adjust for pace, a
Right.
mediocre offense, which is kind of crazy to say after the numbers they put up the first month of the season.
Well, Tyler will help overall efficiency.
Yes,
He'll
for
obviously
sure.
join Powell in making this what probably should be a top 12 offense if Tyler
Should
plays
be.
as well as he did
Yeah,
last year, and if he and Powell achieve the type of chemistry that we would expect they would. But how long can they sustain having the most possessions per game for a
right.
team this century? It's
I know.
incredible, right? Is
It's
this something that's sustainable? I guess we'll see over the coming weeks.
and also in the body, right? It's a lot in the body. Like,
Right.
can they avoid injuries? A lot of running, a lot of, like you said, a lot of wear and tear. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, interesting to monitor. Something definitely different than we've covered, Barry. With this Heat team, they've never been
Yes.
a fast team, and definitely not the fastest team in NBA history. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and you have to credit Spo and Chris Quinn and the entire staff
Yeah.
for engineering this and for the players for buying in and for Jaquez for being terrific. This obviously plays to his strengths and for Powell and for Bam. And Wiggins has had a pretty good start. Obviously, he
Yes.
didn't shoot particularly well on Wednesday night, but he's had a good start to the year, so he certainly deserves a shout out as well. I enjoyed it. Anthony, enjoy Chicago and Philadelphia. Should be an interesting two-game road trip. Good to be with you, and we thank all of you for joining us on Heat Check. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.